Hello, everyone, and I want to talk to you guys about something that you guys might find interesting. Remember South Korea? Yeah, their young people actually prefer crypto over stocks and any other form of investment, especially altcoins, which is the opposite of here. You know why that is? It's literally because they are so desperate and they see no way out of their current situation unless they take the gamble with altcoins. Now, that's pretty depressing. I have to say, I feel sorry for those young people. But could the US and young people end up in the same way in a very short order of time? Now, given the employment situation in the US is way, way better than it is in South Korea, and the economic situation is better too, and there's a lot more land in the US than South Korea, and more resources, and plus all our population isn't gathered in like one city like over there. It's basically Seoul over there, and then maybe a little bit of Busan. We got LA, New York, Chicago, and a bunch of other cities as well. Yes, it's more heavily concentrated on the West Coast and the Northeast, but like Florida, Texas, they all have a lot of people. So the economic situation isn't the same, and America has a lot more resources. But the cost of living is rising in America as well. And I think most people will say that like they can't keep up with the Joneses or the rate of inflation. And baby boomers definitely have it better than Gen Z or even the millennials have it today. And many are looking for, a one-shot win streak to get out of the rat race. And they don't really see it at this point because obviously companies have zero loyalty to their workers. And it's just like a grind mill of how much you can actually get out of them to please the investors. One of the things that we can actually look at that's very similar among the developed countries is the fertility rate. And South Korea is obviously, this is one of the reasons you can tell that they're not doing so well, is that they actually have the lowest fertility rates in the world. And their fertility rate is 0.72. Now that's way below the replacement rate, which means their population is shrinking. It takes a fertility rate of about 2.1 to maintain your population. As it says right here, you need a 2.1 needed to maintain stable population according to Reuters. Several factors contribute to South Korea's low fertility rate, including high cost of living, deep-rooted gender inequalities in the workplace and at home, particularly the double burden on women. They need to work and take care of the kids, and long working hours. Now, in the westernized world, like basically the US and Europe, the US has actually some of the longest working hours and the most working days out of the year out of any nation. This does not include China, Japan, Korea. They have crazy work schedules. And that's one of the reasons that they have delayed marriage and childbirth. So this is the reason that young Koreans actually love crypto. Youth unemployment is very, very high of 6.6%, which is more than double the overall national unemployment rate of 2.7. I'm not really sure what youth unemployment in the United States is, but it's probably not nearly as bad as in South Korea. So yeah. Oh, it's actually 9.73. It's 39. But obviously a lot of U.S. youths, 16 to 24, go to college and are in high school. So you can't really count like really 16 to 18. You have to count 18 to 24. And I think you probably have to apply for unemployment before you're counted in the unemployment rate. So obviously that rate is consistently higher than the national average. So we have very, very similar statistics between South Korea and the USA for young people. Of course, there are the people getting education, but South Korea probably has that too. And theirs is actually lower than ours. Of course, soaring housing costs, like a median apartment price in Seoul, which is essentially kind of like a house condo here, is $689,000. I think that compares fairly decently with how much a condo is in like Chicago and other places. I don't think it's like really any cheaper or more expensive. Obviously, it's more expensive in San Francisco, but like let's just say a Midwest city like Chicago. I think that's about the same price. The price to income ratio is 15.2, which is a lot worse than it is here. I think here is maybe like 6 or 7. But you're seeing a lot of these same factors. And of course, everyone wants upward mobility. So that's why they like these ultra risky crypto markets, because without the ultra risky crypto markets, you are essentially not going anywhere. And if you look at the fertility rate in the US, it's only 1.66. That is below the replacement rate. And if you look at, that's just above Canada and Japan, and of course above China at this point. So, we don't have a replacement rate either. Now, our population is still slowly increasing due to immigration. But since they're trying to deport everyone, our population is probably going to decrease. But a decreasing population does not bode well for the social safety net. And of course, people are already saying that Social Security is really not going to last all that much longer, and that safety net will not actually make it for another 30 years. And I think Korea is facing the same types of problems as well. Now, I know a lot of young people, like people that are maybe like 20 years younger than me, in their early 20s at this point, and they are not feeling nearly as desperate as the people in South Korea. Of course, my friends are all fairly highly educated, so they have an easier time getting a job. But even, I've talked to a lot of other people while I'm fishing, and they're not as desperate as the people in Korea, but there is a creeping sense of desperation that is slowly coming on to Americans as well. And I do think you guys have to admit it if you've actually talked to people around the area. I know, especially in the rural areas, some of them are going to trade, but there's a lot of people, like even in my generation or Gen Y, or the Gen Z people, the Zoomers, that might not be able to find a good job even after they get out of college. This is very different from 19, 20 years ago when I graduated. All of us were able to find pretty nice jobs pretty easily, but it's become harder and harder over the last few years. So might American youth take that same route as Korean youth? And could that actually be the hidden X factor in a booming crypto market in the years to come? Korea has already taken the lead into altcoins. And could the American youth actually follow? Because, if you invest in stocks, sure, if you do a retirement fund and you have a compounding portfolio over 20 years, assuming that you work and make a lot of money over the next 20 years, yeah, you're going to be very well off. But obviously, there's zero guarantee into that right now, like no guarantee at all that that's going to be the case, that you can actually hold that job for 20 years. And if people are stuck in a dead-end job that doesn't pay very much, obviously that 401k isn't going to be worth all that much. So can people actually get desperate enough, like really, really desperate enough, to really just forego safer investments and put all their money into crypto? Now, that's not good news for the country, but for us crypto investors, that might be a huge boon. Since we're in it before the rest of everyone comes in, our bags are definitely going to pump up at that point. Now, if Americans, especially American youth, have the same interest as Korean youth in crypto, then obviously we're going to moon. And that's exactly what we're actually looking at right now. So that could actually be the major stimulus in the future, that American youth lose kind of faith in the stock market. They don't think it's actually compounding fast enough. They want upward mobility, so they're willing to take the risk. And we know that there's a lot of people willing to do that because we see that in leverage traders, futures traders, margin traders all the time. And you know what? I think if America gets into that desperate situation like South Korea, maybe even in Japan, I think some people will definitely forego safety for that opportunity to really just, boost up their income or their status in life by trying to hit that lucky altcoin thing. And I think, at that point, what I think is it's going to go into the altcoins, but a lot of it's also going to go in the meme coins. And if you hit the right meme coins, you're going to go way up. But even with some of the altcoins, there's going to be a lot of money flowing in, and you could 20 or 30x at that point. I don't think it's going to happen in this cycle, but who knows? One more cycle from now, 2 more cycles from now, it's definitely a possibility because looking at the fertility rate, the unemployment among youth, and the soaring housing costs, which is pretty much in line with South Korea, I can actually see Americans actually hit that point sometime along the line. Not the older generation, my parents' generation are set, they're baby boomers. They're already set, and they're probably most of them are probably going to be gone by then, because we're talking about maybe like, 15, 20 years down the line. A lot of them are still going to be here. I hope my parents are still going to be here at that time, obviously. But like, a good portion of them, especially the older ones, are probably going to have moved on at that point. And like, it'll be like Gen Xers, millennials like us, and like Zoomers that are really looking at the situation around the world, and like maybe the generation that comes after Zoomers that are going into the workplace at that point. And they might actually see, hey, it's really, really hard to move up. I don't want to be stuck at this like office job my whole life. AI is going to replace me anyways, and I'm going to be obsolete. Why not take a chance in crypto? So if that happens, it's going to be good for us crypto investors, bad for everyone else, but good for us in crypto investors. So could that be the giant shock that actually happens down the line? And maybe, just maybe, that's why you want to be invested in cryptocurrency. Because like eventually the downfall of humanity is going to be here, or the downfall of the current system is going to be here because of rising social tensions and pressure, the increase of AI, and of course soaring costs that are not being met with the rise of wages. So when that actually happens, those of us that are in crypto are going to have a big advantage. So let me know what you think about this theory. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.